Good evening, everyone. This is the July 28th meeting, obviously, from Council in Tuscan via Zoom. Welcome, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order and could have approval of the agenda. Any additions or? Yes, Councilor Murphy. You like, oh, you move? Approval of the agenda? Is there a seconder? A seconder? All those in favor signify by saying aye, or raise your right hand. Contrary-minded, left hand, motion carried. I'll get used to this after a few times. We have a few regrets. We have Councilor LeBlanc, Michel LeBlanc. He will try to come on, but if he can't, he's already sent his regrets just in case. And we have Councilor D'Entremont that may be coming in a little later on tonight. So those are the only two that we've received word from. Okay, next we have the any conflicts of interest to declare? Yes, Warden Muse.
Yes, I'd like to declare a conflict on item number 5H, which is Switchboard Sewer Engineering Service, please.
5H.
5H.
Thank you, Warden. It'll be so noted. Okay, adoptions of the minutes of the meeting of July the 9th. Would I have a mover for that, please? So moved by Nicole, seconded by Kathy. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Contrary-minded, left. Motion carried. Business arising from the minutes. We have under 4A, unsightly garbage bins. I don't see any attachments there. Will we table that till next meeting, Mr. CAO?
Yes, Mr. Chair. The only reason why it stays there, I think the last time we had the discussion, we said that if councillors were going to canvass their communities to see what had been, what was the thinking around those bins, and I've received very little feedback. I have received some, but not that much. So that's why I left it there. Seeing as Lucien, Councillor LeBlanc is the one that raises it, it'd probably be best to table it. But that's what it was, Council.
Sure, we'll table that till next meeting. I only had one message on Facebook on that. That's all too. Okay, we'll certainly move on now to number 5 for decision. The 2020-21 operating reserve budget. I would like to pass that along to our CAO, maybe do a little bit of an explanation on where we're at with that, if you wouldn't mind, sir.
No problem. So this was just an item that we typically pass during our regular budget meetings, but seeing as we, when we did our capital reserve, we did not re-bring this for approval. So noted that only after that this had actually no motion to approve. So what you'll see is the unaudited actuals for 1920, there was a surplus of $149,000. There was no expenses in the reserve last year. We had $32,300 in interest, and the current year surplus of $117,190 is showing as transferred in. So that's what that 149 is for. And the budget for the current year, we're not budgeting an income this year coming in from the surplus. We are budgeting interest income of $29,000, but we are budgeting a transfer to operations of $141,000. So for a net loss of $112,000, and most of that, most of that would have been the investments that COVID So COVID anticipated some drops in revenue, as you know, and to quote Councillor D'Entremont, the operating reserve was for a rainy day, and COVID proved that it was raining. So we're budgeting 141, and I would recommend that as the operating reserve budget, even if I think that it will be lower than that at the end of the year, and it could be, substantially lower than that. But seeing as that number is the number we passed in the operating budget, it should match the amount coming in as revenue. The expense should match, as we're basically transferring from one account to another, as you're used to me saying. So we are budgeting a drop of fund balance of 112 for the year. And there may be some things that happen in actual that we end up spending a bit more. The one area that is likely to be impacting the reserve this year would be any sort of investment towards the Congrès Mondial 2024. We had, as you recall, committed $250,000 about 2 years ago, and we've transferred very little of that thus far because the committee had not been created and incorporated. So now that it's created and incorporated, I'm fully expecting to receive a request, and I'm expecting that request to be about $100,000. Only some of that has been budgeted in your COVID operating budget, so the rest would likely come from here. But it's not something that you haven't budgeted. It's something that it's a commitment that you made, that you're simply allocating more money this year than you thought, or we collectively thought we would. So it's not, it's certainly a commitment that we had in mind already as staff. So that's the very brief presentation of the operating reserve, and I would recommend that it be approved as presented, unless you have any questions or concerns.
Any questions that any of the councillors may have for our CAO? Seeing none, we have a moved by Councillor Murphy, seconded by Councillor Bork. All those in favor, raise your right hand.
Aye.
Yes, thank you, Richard. Left hand, motion carried. At this point, I'd like to welcome Councillor D'Entremont. Is with us. Good to see you, Councillor D'Entremont. Okay, next we have 5B, which is a relief of taxes for July 28 council meeting. Today's it's a property that has been changed from an owner unknown to the Department of Natural Resources, and it has changed from taxable to exempt. So with the exempt status, the staff is requesting that the current and the prior taxes are uncollectible. So they're asking for a forgiveness or relief of $346.13. That covers it, CAO Muse, pretty well. Yes, it does. Very good, thank you. Any questions on that? Yes. So moved by Warden Muse. Would there be a seconder to that? Seconded by Councillor D'Entremont. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Contrary minded left, motion carried. Now we have, next on the agenda, we have the grants organization, and looking at the grants, we've all had a chance to examine that. I guess I'll probably have to maybe ask our CAO, would that be what councillors have, I guess, sent in as averages that they felt? Would that be sufficient, or should there? Would you have any recommendations there? I mean, this will be upfront.
Sure.
That part.
So I just a couple of things.
Yes.
You can hear me okay, right? Okay. First of all, I'll start from the bottom. I know. Yarmouth Curling Association, what I'm trying to understand, so in the application indicates that it's for capital improvement, specifically, I think, installation and heat pump, etc. Obviously improving the current location. The application suggests that it's a 3 municipal ask. However, I cannot confirm. I've asked and the other 2 municipal units to see if they've received this, and probably the situation is that they have not received the ask as of yet, and that just may be because the deadlines are different and all that. So I'm certainly not suggesting anything other than we're probably the first to get it. So rather than make an approval at this time for that amount, and both the staff recommendation and the council approved averages are completely fine, and there's no issue with that, but it's just not knowing what the other 2 are doing. I would, and knowing that we still have another round of funding to disperse, I would suggest that you not make a decision on that one today, because we don't have any information around what the town or municipality of Yarmouth are thinking on that one. Now, alternatively, that's my suggestion. Council can make a decision to approve an amount and be done with it today. It can absolutely do that, and it's within your ability to do. So I'm just informing you a little bit more on that one. If you're prepared to make that decision today, you're absolutely 100% entitled to do so. The other ones, the only other thing I would say is with the Festival de la Barge, typically we do a 1,500 for all festivals. I realize COVID's a little different, and also, some of the other festivals that have not actually confirmed that they're going to occur may have not received money yet, or they've only received part of that money. So I guess my suggestion is if you're looking to support that one, consistent with the other festivals, it might be advisable to go from 14 to 15, which would have been the staff recommendation. I know how that works. Everybody gives in their averages, and one average is slightly lower than the rest, and it results in that. So what the average is basically saying is that they, mostly agree with the staff recommendation, and to be consistent, I would recommend that number be altered slightly. The rest of them, that's all I would have to add around additional information since you've seen this. It's, like I said, it's your call 100%.
Okay, thank you, CEO Muse. Any comments? Yes, Warden Muse.
With the curling club, like you said, it could be because the other deadlines, maybe they received it and haven't dealt with it. Is that possible? That, like, when do they need that money now? I guess my question is, are they doing that work now, and do they need that money now? I guess maybe in September or whatever won't matter whether it's now or September. I guess my thing my question would be, if they did need the money now, that if the town and the municipality are going to approve theirs, if they have been asked, could we make the motion on that one pending on whatever if the others give, then that'll be okay, or is it better to just leave it totally out and deal with it in September? And we can't deal with it in September. That we won't be able to do anything now until probably November because of the elections, right? On any of that money.
Yeah. So by policy, there is nothing in policy that says you can't make a decision in August or even September around your grants to organizations. Okay. There is policy that defines how you deal with district community grants. Okay. So what we're trying to do is, in absence of policy, we as staff have come to approach this to say, well, if it was council's intention not to make any decisions past July, it likely would come to the same conclusion around a much larger grant to organization request. So that's why we're applying it this way. We're applying, I guess, the intention of the rule rather than the rule itself. On the Curling Association amount, the nature of their request is considerable. So without the other two, I don't think they would be rushed to spend because they wouldn't be able to finish the job. So I guess from my perspective, I think I can't know this for sure, not knowing the minds of the Curling Association, but I would be reasonably confident that that you'd be able to defer a decision. But I can't assure you of that.
That's fine. Thank you.
Good, Warden Hughes. Any other questions or comments?
Richard?
Richard, go ahead.
Yes, not to pick on Festival de la Berge, I believe that they apply under that name necessarily. It doesn't have to be it's not a festival. Because if I remember when we went to our first round, didn't we agree like that we didn't fund any of the festivals because they wouldn't be happening this year? So, Guy, if you could clarify if that money is for something other than a festival.
I can, Richard. That is to, for that, that's for the chapel. They have a little chapel that they made that looks like the kind of a symbol of a church where the first mass was said, and they're doing some lawn repairs and that around the chapel, and that's what the money is for. Thank you, Richard, for that.
That's what I figured because you brought it up before. They go under that name because they're the only one that's nonprofit, or I don't know exactly how it is, but I remember you explained it to us before. So if that's the case, I have no problem with it because it's actually not a festival. That won't be happening.
Right.
Correct.
And thank you for raising that. And I apologize for any confusion from what I said. I do know that they did have the festivities of the Festival de la Barge. Like they had the festival where they cut and did the salt marsh and they did the haystack, but they could not have the meal after, which is typically what they would do. So I apologize if I misspoke or misinterpreted what that application was. I do recall now that it had to do with repairs at the chapelle. So thank you for that.
And one more thing on the curling rink, if I may.
Go ahead, Richard.
On the Curling Association, for that amount of money, I don't see any problem with us approving it. And I mean, for James, let us be out front on something regional instead of waiting to see. I mean, that's what we've decided to give. No matter what the ask is and what the other ones give. I mean, that's what we've decided as a council. We're willing to contribute to the project, and I'm comfortable with that. But I'm only 1 or 9.
Thank you, Councillor Donaldson. Councillor Bork?
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Warden. I was thinking about the same thing with the Yarmouth Curling Club. I don't see any problems with that. The West Pumlico Golf Club, that one there, I see they asked for 5,000 and the average is 600, and the staff didn't recommend anything. So I just wanted to maybe get that clarified. Yeah.
Right. So the reason why staff recommended 0 was because for the first time this year, the West Pumlico Golf Club Association had their taxes completely exempted. The value of that is probably an additional $8,000 to $10,000 a year that they will benefit from that, which is the reason why we did not recommend any amount for the ask. If council wishes to make an additional contribution towards the golf course, it can absolutely do that. But that's the reason why we did not recommend. And I think I did indicate that on a separate email, indicating like, look, this is why. It's not because we don't support the project. It's because, you know, from our perspective, you've made a very big commitment to the West Pumlico Golf Course this year. That does not mean the council can't make an additional commitment. It is,
Thank you.
as I said, this is your decision.
Thank you, CEO Muse. Councillor D'Entremont.
I guess I was under the indication that essentially still had taxes owing that we could not, by policy, not contribute or give them a grant. Am I wrong there, or they still have taxes owing? Is that correct?
They do, and if they make an arrangement for payment, which they have indicated they will, that they have already reached out and indicate that they will do that, then at that point, as long as they respect their payment arrangements, we would treat it no differently than the taxes from other units that have taxes outstanding. So there, it's, you know, like we certainly allowed for the grant, sorry, the full exemption to occur, because that was the motion of council. But they do still have an amount owing that they're going to pay down. So again, the other choice that you can make as council is you could say, well, okay, well, we want to help them, but we don't want to give them the money if they owe us money. So you do have the option to say, well, yeah, we want to support a project. However, rather than support the project, you could satisfy a portion of the amount that they owe from the past as an offset. And then of course, the forgiveness of, like, the fact that they don't have to pay that anymore, they could apply that to the project if they wished. We also have that option.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? So as we've noted, the Festival d'Abarge was commented to bump it up to 1,500, but I think according to the to what's going to be done there, maybe we should leave it to 1,400 to what it is.
My comment on the festival was inaccurate. So you should probably follow your approved average on that, because I misspoke on that item.
No problem at all. I guess if everybody else is comfortable or about the what's there and the curling club and everything, if you're, somebody wants to make that motion this time, let's go for it. Moved by Councillor Bork, seconded by Councillor Digdon. All those in favor, raise your right hand. I'm trying to remind it.
Aye.
Okay, and just maybe for the record, I know, Danny, you're pretty good at this, better than I am. The amount is 19,700 total. So I just want to state that the grants, should I, CEO Muse, should I name all the amounts here so people will know, or
You
might
can
be okay to do that?
that many, so you can.
Okay, yes. Good. I think that Warden Muse always does that. I think it's a great point. Claremont, Deviler, Fitzgerald, and St. Jacquard, that's the monument up in Commodes Hill. The amount of $5,000 is approved. The Jardin des Petits, $2,000 has been approved. Argar Farmers and Artisanal Market, $2,000. Festival d'Abarge de Chapelle, $1,400. Club Acadien, SAR, $1,100. West Pubnico Golf Club Association, $600. The Westport Tuna Museum Painting Separation of Ville de la Croix, $700. Westport Tuna Museum Festival, $900. Westport Tuna Museum Trail, $2,600. Yarmouth County, where am I here? Bike Again, $700. What is Bike Again? I forget now. I don't know if Nicole knew that one or has info on that.
From what I understand, it's a program. I think is it that bikes are donated, repaired, that kind of thing, and not recycled, but reused kind of thing, so that people who don't have bikes can have access.
Merci, Nicole. I hope I didn't put you on the spot.
No, Not at all.
And Yarmouth Curling Association, 2,700. So for a grand total of 19,700. Thank you, everyone, on that.
So,
Okay, we'll continue on the
Mr. Chair,
agenda.
before we
Next
move
up-
on, I just want to advise council that you have not fully spent your grants to organizations. You have, I don't have the exact number in front of me. I think you have approximately $16,000, $18,000 remaining. So in the last, after the, so we've pushed our nonprofit organizations to apply before the 15th of July for this round, but the absolute closing is the 15th of September. So the 15th of September will come and go, and there'll be no decision until the new election of council.
Thank you for that, CAO. That's important information. Okay, next on the list is the Water Supply Lending Program. And we have a few attachments on this one. I've noted here that the Water Supply Lending Program, of course, as most people would know, it's about digging wells or making artesian wells, whatever. I noted that in 2017, there were 4 applications. In 2018, there was 8 applications. 2019, there's been 7 applications. 2020, we have up to 8 applications so far, and some of them are pending for approval at the time. So council has approved in the past, money has approved $240,000 as far as money available. And we have used so far, we have $204,130.67. So it leaves us a grand total of $35,869.33 left for people to apply. So staff has sent us some attachments here and about maybe some recommendations of would we want to increase that? We would want to leave it as it is. This would be the wish of council. I would maybe ask CAMUs to elaborate on the, especially the last point of we can't go too high. We only have so much money to work with. If you would like to explain that to us again.
So I just have the document opened in front of me as well. Just so, oops.
Sorry about that, Alain.
No, not at all. So here we go. So look, I mean, there's obviously an increase in demand for it, and what that report doesn't include is probably 2 or maybe even 3 others that are asking, but they're not at the quote location yet. They may not actually get there. Our experience is people don't necessarily, call us and then follow all the way through. So there may be another 2 still to come, or even more. Obviously, we're still in late July, so August is going to be another month of summer and dryness potentially. So, I mean, the 3 options that we're putting out there for you is you don't actually have to do anything. You've set the cap at $240,000. You're closing in on that cap. The decision to leave it at that would mean that we might refuse applications this year. We may not, but what we would do is respect that cap, to some reasonable effect. I mean, if the cap got us at 241,000, I think we would probably approve that one. But like if anything substantially over 240, we would have to refuse the application. Under the do nothing scenario, we would likely be able to accept 2 or 3 more applications before we would actually. So we could extend the limit again to 275. And look, these are not like hard and fast numbers. You could pick other numbers. We're just trying to identify, what is it that it means if you put your cap up to that number. You might get another 2 to 4. So where you had 2 to 4, increasing it up to 275 would give you another potential 2 to 4. So between 4 and 8 applications this year, additional, what you've already what you've already seen on the list. And then the last recommendation would be really to just extend it to what we would consider to be the maximum cap. And the maximum cap is $350,000. And look, there's no rule out there that says this is how much and no more. This is a question of staff being comfortable, like getting less comfortable about the amount. So what we did internally, we took a look at what happens in cash flow in our leanest months, which would be May coming into June. What would happen in terms of our cash flow in the operations? And we would come down. We wouldn't come down to this number. We would come down to a little higher than this number. So what we're saying is, we looked at the last 3 years, and the lowest amount it got to was about $570,000. And then the taxes start to be collected, and so it starts to even out, then it starts to rise. So we wouldn't be prepared to recommend that entire amount, because that would mean that you'd actually have to borrow to do your daily operations, right? So like you're lending money to your residents, which is a great program, but then you'd have to borrow from another party, either yourself or the bank, to make sure that May and part of June are okay. Now, you wouldn't have to do that long term, but if you're going to do a significantly higher than 350, staff would recommend a different approach than how you're doing it. That's really where we're leaving the cap at 350. Like I said, that's an administrative cap. If council wished to increase that cap, it could absolutely do so. We just want to be in the position where we're advising you appropriately around cash flow. Okay. So keep in mind, this is a great service. We're lending the money. We're making interest on the money, but it takes 10 years to return that money. Okay. So these are 10-year loans. The other reason why we would set a cap and what we call a maximum cap, that's an administrative term. That's not council's decision. We're just recommending that. Is the COVID-19 and long-term impact on cash flow is still uncertain. So we'd like to err a little bit on the side of caution. This is one of the many services that we provide. So we're recommending that council certainly consider increasing the amount. Our recommendation does support that from a staff perspective, but we would also recommend that if you're going to go to 350, that you should stop at 350. And at that point, if you have requests that exceed 350, your demand is actually is asking you to do something else, i.e. borrow the money to lend it.
CEO Muse, could you repeat the last thing you said, that we've lost you a couple of times there?
Oh, I'm sorry. So I guess what I was saying is that the staff would increase the amount, would recommend an increase in the amount from 240. So we believe there's room for an increase there, but we would not recommend an increase beyond 350,000, not this year or any year. So if we get to that threshold, what I would recommend to council is to say, well, actually what we should be doing is probably looking at a short-term loan ourselves. So borrowing the money in order to lend it to our residents, because it's a great program, but we also have to protect our cash for our other services, right? So I hope we didn't lose too much of that. So the recommendation that we're presenting, we're not presenting an amount, we're saying there's a range there that you can discuss and agree on.
Thank you, CEO Muse. So really we could go with a 300,000 if we wanted to, or 275 or 320. Councillor Digdon, go ahead.
Thank you. Well, you said three numbers there, Deputy Surratt, Deputy Warden, but I was looking at 320 myself as a safe, erring a little bit on the side of safety. And again, this COVID has me concerned about money coming in, money going out, and what's going to happen in the long run. So I'd definitely be willing to make a motion that we increase the pot for the well lending program up to a maximum of $320,000.
You made that a motion. Any seconder to that? Seconded by Councillor Albright.
On the question,
Yes. Questions being
question for
called?
the CAO,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
question for LN Muse. LN, this has been going on, what, 3-4 years now, so there's money coming in on the other end. So does that help the situation going forward, considering we don't get an enormous amount of applications? Because I realize going years with a bad well, how important water is to a family. I wouldn't want to see people left out just because of a little bit of book work or how else, I don't know how to put this, but I'm just thinking money coming in must help the situation going forward. And I mean, we do have a relatively large operational surplus, so I'm just not comfortable with not saying yes to people that actually need it, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think that the finance department agrees with your assessment, Councillor Donaldson. It's not difficult for us to administer. We have the accounting system allows us to do it fairly easily. We don't have a ton of, like, while there's a lot of money being dispersed, you see the numbers. There's not like 75 loans that we're managing there, but there is a the number is there for your information. So yeah, I mean, we have not taken into account the payments, the pay downs on this debt at this time. I think, the next time we look at the numbers, we'll probably do that. What we have done is we've applied any loan that's outstanding on a pending sale gets paid out. Okay. So like I borrow it for my, house and I sell the house. Well, I have to satisfy that debt in full. So any of those things that happened have reduced the balance that has been presented to you tonight, but not the payments, not the principal repayments.
Okay. I'm comfortable with Councillor Digdon's motion for the time being, but I don't want to shut the door on this. I want it to be ongoing and see what happens based on applications, of course. If, this dry spell, it could be over next week or it could go on for 2 more months. So, yeah, I'm good with that for now, but I don't want to shut the door.
Thank you.
So before you call for the vote, I can't put my hand up, so it's aye.
Any other comments, questions, or? Yes, Councillor Digdon.
Thank you. No, and I don't want to shut the door on anyone either, but I feel as though we have to have a number to work with, then go from there. If we get more requests after that, I'm kind of hoping that the requests that we would have had, some of them would have come in by now, as far as in the last couple of years. Hopefully we're getting some of the wells that needed attention or that taken care of. And it is a great program. We even had a homeowner the other evening from West Pubnico thanking us as a council on Facebook about the well loaning program and how it's definitely changed their life around to have water in the well when they turn on the tap. So yeah, so that's what I was looking at as well when I made that number, but just erring a little bit, I guess, on the side of caution, being as though there's so many unknowns out there right now and how much COVID is going to cost the municipality in the long run. And that's all. Yep. Thank you.
Councillor Dontimo?
I guess it's been my experience that when CEO Muse has no problem with a certain number, he's usually very, very cautious. And, so if he gives us a number, I don't see a problem going to that threshold. But I'm very, I'm fine with Councillor Digdon's motion, 320. Just wondering, this has been going on for what, 3 or 4 years now. Just wondering if we're finally starting to catch up with the people that were having trouble wells are being restored, wells are being, new wells are being put in. I'm just wondering, like this year so far, knock on wood, I haven't heard too many people in my district call me or talk to me about, not having any water. I know there's probably a few because you can see, the water trucks is, going around and stuff, but it doesn't seem to be that demand so far. Having said that, that could change in a month or so, but I'm just kind of wondering if we're finally catching up or with, with the bad wells.
Through
Go ahead, CEO News.
Yeah, through you. I don't have that information. I think some people have solved their own problem without coming to us. I know that. I know that like I know, and I don't mean to isolate one bank, but I know that the credit union initially had like a really super 5-year loan at the time, and to a maximum of, and I'm not sure if that's continuing, but I know the 5-year rate right now at the credit union and other banks is very good. It's actually better than ours. Ours is 3.5. Theirs is like 2 and something, right? So if you can afford the payments and do it over 5 years as opposed to 10, you'll actually save money if you're a resident and capable of doing that. Some people decide to just call Paul's Water Service 18 times and drop that in their well. Like, so I really don't have that data. I'm hoping to get a little bit of information from Remo. One of the initiatives that they're looking to do is a coupon program. So people will come, this isn't this is in planning mode. They may or may not do this. Okay. So I don't want to set any expectations, but maybe I'll talk about it when it happened in Queens. In Queens, they had a coupon program and you would get coupons from the municipality, but you'd have to give your civic address. You'd have to give basic information. You could bring the coupon to any store, local, Sobeys, Superstore, anything, and you would give them the coupon and you'd be able to get a free, 4-liter jug or whatever of water. And then the municipalities would then subsequently be billed for that. Now, we've done something like that before, except it was almost too convenient. People were just dropping in and getting their free water, right? Like not necessarily somebody who couldn't afford it, but it was somebody that liked the service. So that didn't work out as well. But the advantage of doing the coupon is that we will get that information. And so for those people who can't drink water, presumably they have well issues, and we might be able to follow up with them in the future to talk about a permanent solution.
Great info. Councillor Albright?
I just wanted to ask a question that was asked of me, and I noticed kind of in the information that you sent, that may have answered it for me, but somebody asked me if they take out a loan with us and it's supposed to be for 10 years, is it possible to pay it down before the 10 years?
Absolutely, 100%.
That's what I thought, but I just wanted to confirm that.
They can pay it off at any time, like 100%. Most people don't because, they get used to the payment, and that's okay. And they're all right with it. Most times when people are accelerating their payments, they're paying it in full because they sold their property. But yeah, we will accept their money in an accelerated format, and they won't have to pay. They'll only pay the interest to the point where, right, there'll be no penalty, nothing, right? Because it's not actually a loan in the same definition as a loan would be in the bank and all that, where they have to secure this and all that. There's fees associated. No, it's nothing like that. We charge $100 at the front. So if you have most people are getting quotes for dug wells, and they're like 6,900, like 6,000 plus HST. And we add 100 and 7,000. So any admin fees at the front, there's no fee at the end at all. They can pay at any time.
I see that on your attachment, two people have paid early. One from 2017 and one from 2019.
And both were property sales.
Oh, okay. That says a lot. Very good.
So, and just to say this to you before you call the motion, and I didn't put this in the recommendation because it's something that I would have probably informed you of before, but I'll remind you and those watching is that there's no income testing. There's nothing like that we don't put people through the same kind of questions that a bank would typically put somebody in. However, people should know that if they don't make their payments, the amount owing is treated exactly as taxes would be on a home or on a property, is that we would have first dibs, which means if you don't pay in 2 years, you go into arrears for 2 years, your property can be taken to tax sale as a consequence of not paying. So while we don't have income tests and all these things and like, you know, debt ratios and liquidity ratios that we're calculating, we do have a solid backup for a loan that people can't pay, and it's the same tool that we have for taxes outstanding.
So if their taxes are in arrears, they would not qualify?
That is correct. So the first thing, if somebody's in arrears, the first thing that they have to do is satisfy their arrears before they would even qualify for the loan.
Yeah.
Now, but we define arrears as somebody who has fully paid or has made arrangements to pay. So if somebody's already on a monthly plan and they're paying in good stead, we consider that to be current and not in arrears.
Thank you, CEO Muse.
Yeah, it's a lot of
Yeah.
micro there. Sorry, guys.
No, that's okay. Okay, you have the motion. Any other comments, questions?
One more comment.
Go ahead, Councillor
One more.
Donaldson.
Yeah, just to clarify what Calvin or Councillor Galtimo mentioned about extra water truck traffic. Yes, Paul's water trucks are on the go way more this time of year, but I'll clarify. A lot of that, they hire us at Camo Seafoods with one of the big tankers. A lot of it is for filling swimming pools this time of year. Acadian Sea Plant uses a lot of water for whatever they do for their production of their seaweed in at the airport property. And the fishing industry is going full tilt this time of year. So a lot of boats are ordering water, and I'm sure he's having extra work filling wells, but it's not primarily wells this time of year. It's a lot of other things. So just so people will know. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Donaldson. Very good. Okay, the motion's on the floor. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Contrary-minded, left hand. Motion carried. Okay, next item is the Middle East Publico Water Project, and we have an attachment on that. Open that up. I guess what we have here, I can start the ball rolling on this. There's two bidders on the water system upgrade. There was WSP Canada, which was at, their bid was at $24,400. And RV Anderson, their bid was at $24,900. And Public Works has looked at the bids, and they've come up with a ranking. And obviously, WSP was, Canada Inc. was ranked at number 1. For some reasons, probably being lower. And the Public Works is recommending WSP Canada to be the bidder to accept it. CEO Muse, anything else to add on that?
I would support Public Works' recommendation and note that one of the other reasons why they picked the low bid, which is typically what we would do, but the other reason was the risk of additional costs was lower. So while they had the lower bid, there was a risk that the other bid could have been a little higher because of unforeseen travel or other costs. The last thing I would say is WSP has done work on the Middle East, infrastructure before, so they're quite familiar. So it will allow us probably to accelerate the project compared to somebody who hasn't had that experience.
Very good, CEO Muse. Councillor D'Entremont, do you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to note that, wow, that's as close a bid I've seen in a long time. Usually they're not within, you know, the, I guess, $500 or whatever it is. That's very, very close, very competitive, which is nice to see, because sometimes they're so far away, you wonder, you know, what are they bidding on? Is it the same, you know, thing? So, and we'll let Councillor Book make the motion.
Councillor Bork?
Thank you, Councillor D'Entremont. I'll make the motion that we accept the bid of WSP Canada.
Seconded by Councillor D'Entremont. Any more questions or comments?
I would remind council that this funding is 50% subsidized by the ECOA project that we announced as funding. So this isn't all your money. This actually is a combination of surpluses from prior years from the operation along with ECOA. All right, so that's who's paying for it.
Thank you, CEO Muse. So we have any, do we have any other comments, questions? If not, all those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Contrary-minded, left hand. And Richard, to go. Motion carried.
Yeah, I have to keep pressing start on and on.
Very good. I'll get the code. Very good. The next item is Deputy Returning Officer. And we have, we'll look here, an attachment. And we normally have, Kim Rowley has been appointed as the returning officer for the municipal election for the municipality of Argyle in October 2020. And there's a recommendation from staff that we designate another person as a support person, which is Lori Murphy. And I see here on, she has willingly accepted onto that. So I'll leave that to council to see what they think or what they have to do. Warden Muse.
I'd like to move that we name Laura Murphy as a deputy returning officer for 2020 municipal elections.
Good. Seconder. Seconded by Councillor Digdon. Okay, any more comments on that? If not, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Contrary-minded, left.
Aye.
You're right on, Richard. Very good. Motion carried. Welcome, Lori. Okay, next item is the Department of Transportation Infrastructure Renewal Capital Program. And that part I would prefer is the cost sharing agreement, 3-year cost sharing agreement. I would like to pass that on to the CAO Muse, if you wouldn't mind.
No problem, Mr. Chair. I'll be very quick on this one. We usually sign a 3-year deal with the province of Nova Scotia. Coincides every 3 years, a 3-year deal every 3 years. So it doesn't actually force you to spend your money on anything, but what it does is it enables you to enter into an agreement with the province of Nova Scotia if ever you wanted to prioritize a list of your J-class roads for cost sharing for pavement. So for instance, I don't think we've only done one since I've been there in 2006. And we did that last year. It was actually Birch Drive in Plymouth in the subdivision. So Birch Drive and a very, very tiny section of Riverside Drive was done because it was like, there was a big hole that had to be fixed. So that was done last year, and that was done in accordance with this agreement. So I would recommend that council approve this extension, or I guess re-signing of the J-class agreement with the province of Nova Scotia, reminding you again that it does not commit you to any funding, but it does enable you to do cost sharing if you choose to in the next 3 years.
Thank you, CEO Muse. Any questions, comments? Yeah, maybe we could get a mover. Moved by Councillor Bork. Seconded by Warden Muse. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Contrary-minded, left hand. Motion carried. Next item is the Westport Sewer Engineering Service. And
I'm going to leave.
oh, yes.
This is my conflict on this one.
Very good, Warden Muse. Appreciate that you're reminding us. The bids were higher than expected. If by reading what we've got, the attachments, and maybe CEO Muse, you could maybe add on to what's happened here.
Yes.
Better explanation that I could do.
So this one, we originally brought it for decision to council in the past, and due to, I guess, an abundance of caution, we decided to get to return the decision to our solicitor. So I'm not going to go into client solicitor discussions on the matter, but I will say that what can be shared publicly is that there were three companies that sought to bid on this project, and two of the bidders were considered to be disqualified based on not delivering certain key aspects at the deadline. So it's these types of situations when we don't get all of the information from a bidder are quite disconcerting, because we have to make an interpretation as to whether or not they're disqualified or not. And so we analyzed the information, provided all the information to our solicitor at the time, and he initially agreed that there was only one qualified bidder. We needed to get that information from the solicitor for a very specific reason. We cannot actually, we can only negotiate with qualified bidders when it comes to price. So as two of the bidders that were disqualified, their bids were thrown out. So there was only one that was considered, and that was the one of EXP. However, their bid was quite a bit higher than our budget. So it was 123,000. All these numbers exclude HST. So 123,000 was their bid, and our budget was disclosed at between 82 and 92. So they would have been made aware of the budget range. So that gave the bidders an opportunity to understand whether they could do it for that price or not. Because some, presumably when they know the budget, they decide whether or not they want to look at that or not. So we did get three bidders that were interested. However, the negotiated price, so we had to negotiate, because we only had one qualified bidder, and because that bid was in excess of budget, the actual procurement process is to enter into negotiation if you think you can. And if you cannot get to a number that brings you close to your budget, then you have a couple of choices. One would be to accept the bid even if it was above budget, and the other would be to cancel the bid and re-tender. But to re-tender means a substantial change in you can't just tender the same tender, okay? So many of you have had this experience with, an admin building. So so these things, they kind of teach you some of the processes, whether you want to learn it or not. And so we did manage to isolate a section of the work that EXP did not have to do. So we could actually, do construction inspection or a section of that ourselves using the skill sets that we have internally. So as a consequence of that, the price was then reduced to $98,990, which we believed was close enough to our budget range to accept. Okay, like 98 versus 92 is not a considerable amount when you consider the bigger picture. This is $1 million project. So we then received a letter from the solicitor of one of the disqualified bids that did not agree with our assessment, and in an abundance of caution, we returned all of that information to our solicitor and had him engage another solicitor to confirm his position. And that position was confirmed, that we had one qualified bidder, which is EXP, which is why we are recommending that that we accept EXP's revised bid of $98,990, select the firm as the successful bidder, and get the septic tank installation project underway. So the details of the solicitor advice can be shared, and you have received information in your email that is subject to in-camera, and left the possibility of you wanting to go in camera to clarify. If you had any questions regarding that solicitor advice, but we will not be sharing the details of that advice publicly.
Thank you, CAO Muse. Any comments or questions may have? If not, a motion could be done right now if the council so wishes.
So moved.
One moved by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Dotremont. There's no further discussion on the subject, on the bidder. All those in favor, raise your right hand.
Aye.
Okay, my left hand. Motion carried. Thank you, everyone. Okay.
Somebody
Next item
can-
is the next item is the COVID fire support, and this is something that we had passed on to staff to look at some of the fire departments that would have no chances to fundraise because of COVID-19. Let's face it, many of the fire departments, you could possibly have bottle drives, chowders, garden parties, or like the Buptic Festival. I don't know if that's even for the, I don't think that's for the fire department, that's the wrong one. But they do a lot of fundraising, and because of COVID-19, it certainly has restricted in their fundraising. So council wanted to maybe find a way that maybe due to COVID-19, we could help the fire departments, you know, with because they can't fundraise. And staff has come up with a four-tier approach on how we could fund them. CEO Muse, would you mind explaining those four? I'd prefer if you would.
Sure. So before I get into the tiers, I just quickly say that the nonprofit organizations that have been impacted by COVID or have an opportunity to ask us for funding in situations where they've had specific losses. We just went through that, like we've received applications for grants to nonprofit organizations. But our grants to nonprofit organizations specifically excludes volunteer fire departments because they're funded by us. We fund their operations on an annual basis, and they do fundraising to supplement that. So this is why this resolution that is being attached as a draft for you to consider only looks at fire departments. So the concept is that, you know, we know they couldn't fundraise in certain situations. Some of them might be able to fundraise later on. They might be able to catch up, but others have like set fundraisers that they cannot have. Like you have a lobster supper in May. It's, you know, it's not the same as having one in October, right? So there's certain things that fire departments do. And let's face it, when they fundraise, they reduce the pressure on us to fund their, you know, they're doing things for their community. They're doing them on their own. So we didn't want them to fall too far behind on that. And a very small team, me and Lori and Kim actually was assisting in getting the information from the fire departments. We got most of the information we need, but rather than, you know, like if the resolution gets passed, we can go and circle back to those that haven't provided information and let them know that, look, if your fundraising was in a certain, you know, if you fundraise this much, you'd be entitled to this much. So the four tiers are, if you didn't do fundraising in the most recent fiscal year, then you would not be getting a grant because this grant is specific to replacing that fundraising revenue. So if you didn't do fundraising, you know, God bless you, you didn't do fundraising. We're not judging that, but we're not going to replenish a fundraising revenue that didn't exist. So the second level of funding is that any fire department that did fundraising of between $500 and $2,000 in the most recent year, and I'm not talking about gross revenue, I'm talking about net profit. So like, you know, fundraisers with Chase the Ace can be, you know, the revenue can be, you know, $50,000, but your costs might be 48, right? So I'm talking about, you know, when the smoke clears and the expenses are taken off, if you were able to profit between 500 and 2,000 in the most recent fiscal year, the municipality under this resolution is proposing that we would give a one-time grant of 1,000. So it would it would it wouldn't in some case. So it would basically it wouldn't necessarily bring them 100% back to par. Okay. So the third level would be if you fundraise between $2,000 and $5,000, you'd get a municipal grant of $1,500. And the last tier, if you fundraise more than $5,000, so if it's 5,001 or if it's 20,000, you get a one-time municipal grant of $2,000. Why did we do that? We are also limited in how much money we have to distribute, so we wanted to set a cap, and the cap that we're setting is 2,000. Now, the tiers have been informed by the information we received. They didn't just fall out of the air. So those fundraising ranges are taken from actual fundraising efforts made by the fire departments that did so in the current year. Is it a perfect return on their fundraising efforts? No, it is not. It's not intended to replenish 100% of their loss. It's intended to reduce the pain of that loss. And it also recognizes that there may still be fundraisers that can happen. So the bottle drives in the spring couldn't happen, but they can happen now, right? So as long as there's some social distancing, et cetera, there is the possibility of fundraising still to come. So we wanted to recognize that as part of the resolution. So I say resolution. We didn't do a policy because we figured this would be a one-time thing, maybe a two-time thing. So we didn't think a policy. We felt a resolution would probably address the situation a little bit more from a more practical perspective. And you've had the chance to see the resolution, and if you have any questions or concerns, by all means.
Thank you, Chair Muse. Anybody have any questions? Councillor Burke.
Yes, thank you. I think this is a good resolution, and our essential work there. Our fire departments are essential services, and I think they deserve a little compensation. I mean, they are. I mean, these are volunteers, and they give a lot to the communities. And if we didn't have them, I don't know what we would do. It would cost us more than that to pay a fire department. So I like to make the motion that we accept this resolution.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. And seconded by Councillor Digdon. Any other comments, questions? If not, all those in favor, raise your right hand.
Aye.
Contrary minded, nay. Motion carried. Thank you, Richard. You're right on. Okay. From there is something that I've forgotten to add myself at the beginning of the meeting. Although it's on the agenda, it's at number 10. There'll be an in-camera discussion on negotiations. I don't know if I'm out of order to do that, although there is a line item that says in camera. I think Mr. Warden would think that's okay, because there's a negotiated item that we should put in camera. So I don't know how good you are with the rules. I didn't bring it up at the beginning of the meeting, and we do have an in-camera item we'd like to bring up. Your thoughts on that, please?
I think that can be added to the agenda. Like, I think we can have an in-camera session. We leave that there. I think that if someone had an issue at the beginning of the meeting or through the meeting that they felt that we couldn't discuss in public, that we could add it, because we do add items to the agenda, and I think we could probably add that as an in-camera item and deal with it with the way it should be. I have no problem with that.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I appreciate that. I want to check with you. That sounded okay. We'll put in camera with just negotiations. That's why we have to go in camera. Next item, correspondence and for information. The Yarmouth and Acadian Shores. That is about, let me see, get back to immediately receiving funds to aid tourism, rebuild and recovery on that one. D, municipal profile and financial conditioner indicators report, and 42-page attachment. I'm sure, Glenn, you've scoured that, Glenn, right to the end, just like me. But I would ask our CAO if there's anything you would like to add on to that one, usually just for discussion, not discussion, but just for information, but anything you'd like to point out? I thought that, I mean, we just had one yellow, so the rest was all green.
It's an improvement from the last year. I think we had 2 yellows or something like that. In a lot of sectors, we are showing strong when compared to other rural municipalities. But I would say that with a warning, because the yellows and could potentially turn into reds. Particularly, there's a couple of things that would be concerning to me. 3 things in total. One is your median income is very high right now, and that, like by median income, I mean average family income for the municipality. The last statistics show that the municipality of Argyle is probably the highest in the Tri-County area. But we all know that can change pretty fast depending on the price of our exports. So as that family median income, so if the family median income is high, that means their ability to afford their taxes as currently charged is high. They can afford it. Like, it's a very affordable bill for, when comparing that to median income. Now, I'm not suggesting that our tax bills are affordable to every single person in the municipality. Some people are not at the median income, and some people are higher than the median income. So I certainly don't mean to suggest that everybody is fine, but it's a better average position than most municipalities across Nova Scotia. However, the other thing is that the other things that we have to consider is obviously our costs are rising, and the further you are away from the center in terms of the delivery of services, the delivery of those services as time goes on may be more challenging and may be more expensive. Also, your assessment, your property assessment, your growth in property assessment is light. And that's mostly due to market value fluctuations. So as you all know, that can spike up or spike down. We've had years where it's been quite poor. And really, since the cancellation of the CAT back in 4 or 5 years ago, we saw a tremendous dip in market rates, and we may only be starting to see some of that pick up again. So certainly, it's a statistic to keep an eye on as council. That while things are showing pretty strong comparatively to others, there are always risk factors that can change that. So good news, but always be careful is what I would say.
The age is, CAO News, the age of our municipality. Are we, from what you've talked to other CAOs and that, is our medium age, are we higher than most, like I see more seniors, or are we about the same as other rurals? Or
we're similar to other rurals. The trend in Nova Scotia is the further away from HRM you are, the more likely that you're older. And so we're higher than, Nova Scotia has a higher than average aging population, and Southwest Nova and in our area are slightly higher than the average of Nova Scotia. So that's another factor.
thank you very much, CAO Muse. Any questions on that financial indicators that you may have? I certainly found it very interesting, the parts that I read anyhow. Okay, keep on going to changes to the building code proposed. Attachment 7 pages. Under D, a thank you letter, and that thank you letter is from Friends of Ellenwood Park, the chair, Christine Bolger, for thanking us for the grant money that we gave, $250 to their organization. But very often we see a thank you letter, but always nice to see. The Department of Municipal Affairs and Housing, we have one page on that. Amendments to the municipal planning strategy and land use bylaw. They've received our proposal, and they will be looking at it and I guess coming back to us down the road if they so approve it. Financial requests, we have none that I have noted. Any agenda topics for our next meeting? Notice of motions? Not seeing any. Question period, were we able, CAOMUs, to get any questions, or we're not live maybe?
I think we had technical difficulties, and so there are no questions at this time. What I will do is I'll note when it gets posted, and I'll keep an eye out for the questions and do my best to answer them for you.
Sure. Okay, need a mover and seconder to go in camera
Motion to go in the camera.
by Councillor Bork. Seconder. Seconded by Councillor Albright.